Hey YouTube, how's it going? What's up, what's up? So I hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, I don't really know exactly kind of what the overarching topic of this video is going to be, but I'm kind of I guess I don't know. It's late at night. It's I don't know, what is it like? Yeah, it's 10:30 p.m. It's cold as shit outside, dude. It's 10 degrees or something, and it's snowy and icy, and I guess I'm feeling kind of indoors right now. I'm kind of in my thoughts, and I don't know. I haven't been hanging out with anybody besides my family lately, and I haven't been talking much. You know what I mean? Yeah. And typically speaking, if I feel I've been feeling some emotions that I've been having issues putting words to, or do you know what I mean? Yeah, whenever the path gets kind of blurry, or whatever the next step is becomes somewhat unclear. Typically, I've found that something along the lines of a default mode network reset is what'll do the trick. And that can come in the form of very many different methods. You know what I mean? You could use soma, acid, or weed, or LS, or not. Yeah, that's acid. But yeah, peyote, DMT, freaking, yeah, amanita muscaria, lots of shit. And so, yeah. However, you don't need psychedelics or substances in order to do default mode network reset. Essentially, you just need to shake up the mental roots that your mind has been carving. If you've been habitually following mental patterns, or pursuing pleasure, or avoiding pain, or anything like that. Sometimes if you do it repeatedly in the mind, it kind of becomes these permanent grooves. You know what I mean? Kind of if you're skiing down a ski hill over and over again, they have those rakes that keep the snow fresh, otherwise the grooves get too deep and the snow gets too compacted and it becomes like ice. You know what I mean? Similarly, consciousness, when the mind becomes attached, and lots of other things, you know what I mean, when it starts to cling in various ways to comfort, or lots of different things. Yeah. That consciousness can coalesce, kind of like how that snow does, into those mental grooves of pursuing those certain feelings, and it manifests kind of like ice in terms of stress, tension, and kind of stuck chakras and stuck energy and shit like that. And I find all of that to say things like just shaking up your habits, patterns, and routines can be enough to kind of do a mini default mode network reset for your mind. If you need to do a full-blown one, that's why medicines like soma, LSD and mushrooms and things like that, and weed exist, and ketamine, and that's why they, well, I don't know if that's why they exist, but they're considered medicines for that reason, I think. 2 cents. But yeah, to provide a window into non-duality, essentially, something like that. Yeah, into moksha, or nirvana, or, well, non-duality is not moksha or nirvana, or it's not something or nothing. It's not somewhere. It's not nowhere. It's neither. Okay. Anyways, come to God. Kind of I don't know. I thought this might sound weird, y'all, but I was kind of thinking to create this video, not only to do a little bit of a default mode network reset, because I typically don't stay up this late these days. It's yeah, I'm old as fuck now, I guess, and and 10:30 p.m. is really late for me, and yeah, so yeah, that's a bit of a pattern shake-up, and also I figured I'd let my two halves kind of just kind of either ask questions to each other, just talk, or something like that, because that's Yeah, I've realized that that's a thing lately, so it's kind of fun. Yeah, yeah. Not lately, but like, ah, yeah. Anyways, yeah. So, yeah. I'll tell you what, y'all. It could be like, I found that like, when it comes to like living daily life and just like practical everyday being, you know what I mean? It can be really hard to like maintain an equilibrium of like, you know, between asceticism and overindulgence. Cause like, what like fits into the category of indulgence is different per person. Like, what might be an indulgence for one person might not be an indulgence for another person. Do you know what I mean? It's whatever like satisfies the stomach of the mind. Whatever the stomach of the mind is craving. Do you know what I mean? Now, like, it could be tough because, you know, desire is what causes us to be who we are as individuals. Like, what our specific desires as individuals are what cause us to do the behaviors and, you know, therefore manifest, you know, lives as what they are, you know, as individuals, you know, through like, you know, whatever you want to think, like karma or, you know, dharma, the heart, you know what I mean, the collective unconscious, something like that. And karmic force is kind of like affecting and sweeping throughout the collective unconscious and like causing us to kind of behave in ways that we as individuals might not even really fully understand, kind of like a neuron firing. You know what I mean? A neuron firing would have no idea what the brain signal it's sending is. It would just think, okay, signal on, signal off, signal on, signal off. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like karmic forces, like desire and stuff like that, in whatever way it might manifest, typically, like, I feel like it's like something like that. Kind of like each one of us functioning as a neuron in Gaia's brain. Do you know what I mean? And basically a manifestation of a neuron firing. Like, we don't, as individuals, like, necessarily understand the scope of, like, what our actions and, like, you know what I mean, will lead to, like, the butterfly effect and shit, you know? Yeah. And, like, yeah. And so, like, yeah, it can be really hard to, like, when the mind really wants something, when the mind, you know, has a goal of some kind, it can be quite difficult to, like, kind of maintain this, like, equanimity of mind where, like, you're taking steps towards the goal without having, like, any expectation for an outcome and without, like, allowing any of your happiness or peace to depend on the karma fall of the actions that you take towards that goal. Karma fall meaning fruits of your actions. Karma essentially meaning action or cause and effect, and fall meaning fruit. And yeah. And yeah, it can be tricky to like find that balance. And lately I've been alright with it. You know what I mean? Like, much better than I've been in my past. Like a lot of things, like things like liquor and, you know, hard drugs have been replaced with cigarettes and Mike and Ikes and shit like that, and coffee, like, yeah. And long drives with sad music playing and stuff like that, too. But still, even though, like, the severity of the indulgence in terms of its, like, after effect has gone down, you still have to be careful because, like, the mind can become just as dependent on externalized things for its sense of peace. Do you know what I mean? Like, no matter what it is. It could be sugar, it could be coffee, it could be ice cream, it could be a person, it could be music, it could be drugs, it could be TV, it could be working out, dude, it could be a whole bunch of shit. Self-improvement, you can get addicted to that shit. And get into this, like, never good enough mindset and, like, perfectionist mindset and all this. Although, like, you know, like, again, it could, yeah, like, black and white thinking, right? Like, things are neither good nor bad, and it's all about how you use it, and, like, yeah, like, I feel like the idea of spiritual perfection is a thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, kind of what Siddhartha found under the fig tree, and like the peace that Jesus promised and stuff like that. Like, I feel like you can completely surrender yourself to God and kind of find like lasting equanimity that kind of doesn't get shaken by the oscillations of Om and stuff like that, like nirvana or whatever the heck. I feel like it's possible to find lasting nirvana. However, I've noticed in life that even when you have found nirvana, like the waves of life can still like get you caught up and sweep you away. Like no matter what, you're never like completely free from the oscillations of Om. It's just whether or not you allow yourself to become caught up emotionally or like egoically attached to like bits of Om. And at any point you can become attached, and at any point you can let go. And that's what I've found anyway. And so like liberation or moksha or release, like yeah, you can cling at any point and you can let go at any point. And like just because you've let go doesn't mean you can't start clinging again. And do you know what I mean? And yeah. So like it's never like you could just like check out about it. Do you know what I mean? Like maintenance of the mind, or you know, mental hygiene sort of, or ego hygiene, something like that. Like yeah. And like I try to remind myself that because like, you know, it's tricky because like I'm in a kind of time period right now since I'm 25. Like I just finished up my brahmacharya, which is kind of like the brahmacharya, is that word that was, and it means like the student phase of life. In traditional Hindu thought and Eastern thought, life is kind of divided up into 4 quadrants, sort of. It can be divided up in many different ways, obviously, but, you know, one way of thinking of it is dividing it up into 4 quadrants, or 4 phases, or time periods, or whatever you want to call them, and eras. And each one's 25 years, and for a lifespan of 100 years, around about, and it can constrain or expand depending on what your lifespan ultimately ends up being. It's up to God, right? And, or, well, they say that the yogi can die at will, which I wonder. But, yeah. But yeah. I was gonna say, I kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah. I remember. Yeah, so the brahmacharya is the student phase of life, the first phase. And I kind of wrapped up my student phase a little earlier, kind of in the mental hospital and stuff like that. I kind of feel like this transition period happening among, well, I'm also like, you know, transitioning with like estrogen and stuff like that, but like that's been going on for like a little while, or like a year and a half or some shit. But yeah, anyways, I'm also feeling a transition period between like my student phase of life and the second phase, which I forget what like the Sanskrit or Hindi term is for the second phase, but the like English translation is the career phase, or householder, I believe. Or is householder third? I think it goes brahmacharya, student, then career, then householder, and then like elder, or like spiritually detached, like, you know, worldly detachments, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, going within and stuff, like that last phase of life. I forget what their terminologies are. It's not really important for what I'm saying here, but like, yeah, I'm feeling like a transition between the student phase of life and kind of the career / householder phase. And my mentality is kind of shifting, and like, yeah, and things haven't been that turbulent. Like, they've been remarkably steady compared to like how things were in the past, like last year. Like, almost oscillating if it's a wave, do you know what I mean? It was like that amplitude and the frequency was crazy. It was wild. Lately, it seems like things have kind of been, which is chill, kind of harmonious and like even and steady. It's been nice, and I'm feeling like, yeah, I've been trying to kind of like, I guess, maintain. Yeah. However, I understand that like kind of like any mental resistance that happens to that which arises in life is kind of like what leads to suffering and like things like that. And so like I I have no idea how Om will oscillate in the next second, minute, hour, day, week, month, year, etc. Yuga, you know, and I try to live like that. Do you know what I mean? Not without consideration for the future, but without my attention placed in my mental conception of what the future may be. I do my best to just be present and to act with consciousness, kind of with faith that if I act presently with consciousness, that right action will take place, essentially, if I'm acting in accordance with my heart. And yeah, which is kind of where the idea of dharma or like law comes from, which there's karma and dharma. And karma is just like cause and effect. Like, you know, you push a wall, it pushes back, you throw a ball up in the air, it comes back down, you know, that's karma. Dharma is more like, it's your conscience. It's like when it's when you those things that you know you should do, not because somebody else told you, just those things that you know you should do. So like if you wake up in the morning and you have pets, it's the part of you that gets you to feed your pets before you eat. You know what I mean? Or if you have kids, like, yeah. Or taking care of your parents when they're ill, or, you know, being of service for your family and things like that. And being of service for your community and for, you know, the people you love and stuff like that. And yeah. And yeah, that's dharma. You know, there's ideas like you have a dharma to your parents as a child, you know what I mean? Since they raised you and, you know, you owe them for, you know, having raised you in a sense. You know what I mean? And so you provide that kind of like you give back in the way of like being of service and like available for your family and stuff like. Do you understand what I mean? Like kind of like that, right? And yeah, and yeah. And so like yeah. Oftentimes in life, like I start to get into mindsets where like all I want to do is like sit in my garage like I'm doing now and smoke cigarettes and just like listen to music, you know what I mean? Or just like watch YouTube videos, or just go on drives and listen to music and smoke cigarettes there. Do you know what I mean? Like not really doing anything, not really meditating, not really, yeah, just kind of distracting myself and indulging in sensorial pleasure in my chosen preferred ways. Which it doesn't matter which way your mind, you know, it's unique for each one of us, but that's the ways that my mind likes to kind of, I guess, cope or avoid. And I've been trying to like remind myself like ways to listen to the heart and ways to make sure that like I'm taking steps towards like my true goals, like the selfless goals that are at the core of my heart, which often get covered up by that which is false, do you know what I mean? By selfish goals. But typically the core of all goals and like all desire is divinely motivated. And yeah, it can be tricky to kind of like sort out, to have the discernment kind of, to know which internal drives and voices to listen to and which ones to ignore. And there's no clear-cut one way. However, I would say, like, when all else fails, and when all else, logic, you know, meditation practice, drugs, whatever the hell, kind of, yeah. When all else fails, there's two things I can say, though. When all else fails, one, remember the golden rule. Treat others the way you'd want to be treated. Just be loving and kind, and it'll keep you in line. And two, just love. Love is the answer, and love is the way. That doesn't mean love in any one specific manifestation exclusively. Do you know what I mean? When in doubt, and when all else fails, love is the answer. So think about in your life and look deep within your own heart. What do you love? What's important to you? And what would you consider to be worth living your life for? What do you love? And whatever you do love, as kind of a meditative technique or a yoga technique, I find it helpful to start with something that I find, like, my mind finds readily available, like, as an example of something to love. And then I take that and then I start to expand it to everything that, is there for my mind, / my eyes, / my indriyas, / my observer, the self, or whatever, to perceive or to experience. Which that kind of implies the self is the experiencer, which the self is neither the experienced, nor the experience, nor the experiencer, neither expression nor void, neither something nor nothing, neither, nameless, formless consciousness, but when all else fails, and when all other direction and, do you know what I mean? When all other guidance and when all else fails, when it's all too heavy, and when it's all too meaningful, or when there's no meaning and it's all empty and none of it matters, whatever the case may be. When all else fails, love is the answer. And you could start with loving yourself, if you don't have anybody to love. If you have others to love, and you don't love yourself, for example, you could start by loving them, and maybe that'll get you to love you. Or if you already love yourself, you could start by loving yourself and spreading that out to everyone in your life, and making sure you're sharing the love. And kind of, for as much as you receive, giving back as much as, like, to, balance it out and shit. Giving as much as you take. And, nobody's perfect with that, but just, doing your best effort. Keeping it in mind, kind of. And I've found in life that when I do that, when I kind of set my, whatever's, bogging me down or, getting me caught up in my mind, when I can kind of see past that for a little bit and just dedicate some effort towards, spreading some love or engaging in loving action, dharmic action. Typically that's kind of what gets me out of that route. And, out of my own head, kind of. And so if you're struggling in life, or if you're, kind of aimless, or looking for your path, or directionless, or, when all else fails, love is the answer. Now, what way love manifests for you in your specific situation in your life, I can't say. Because on some level, it's all love. It's all love. And, so it's not exactly an arrow towards anywhere, but your heart knows. Your heart knows. And the core of your personality knows too. They're one and the same. As all dualities are false, so is the duality between you and yourself. As well as the duality between you and other, self and other. And good and bad, and positive and negative, and So if you ever get into these cycles of pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain, it can be helpful to, first of all, remind yourself to ponder upon the differences between these so-called dualities, which, you can think of it as two ends of one magnet, positive and negative, two ends of one pole. Pole is kind of the Mayic idea, I guess, the Maya, the sign for the thing itself, that which it appears to be. But what it actually is, what actually unionizes opposites? What is the actual union of opposites? It's no bit, right? It's no part. It's not the mind, it's not the body, it's not the gunas, it's not the indriyas, the sense organs. The self isn't any conceptual part alone. Right. It's nothing that you can point at or name. Neti. And yeah, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but like, but yeah. Oh, I'm talking about non-duality, and yeah, the question was, what is it that actually unionizes opposites? What is the union of opposites? What is that? The pole. You know, the metaphorical pole. What is the pole? Now, I can neither say it nor can I say it. No, I can neither say I know it nor can I say I know it not. However, I will purport an answer, right, for you to chew on or whatever the heck you. The answer to what is the union of opposites, I think, is you. I think it's you. You, the viewer, whoever the heck you are, it's you. Yeah. And now the issue, I guess, when it comes to terminology and like neti and all that is, what is you? What is that? You know what I mean? It's not, awareness isn't any conceptual bit alone. It's all of it at once, but it's not all of it or none of it. It's not something, it's not nothing. It's, yeah. So it gets tricky. And that's why there's this kind of phrase that's something along the lines of, it could be known through love, not through thought. It could be found through thought, but it can't be known through thought. There's a school of yoga called Jnana Yoga, the path of like contemplation and like thought and like knowledge and like recognition and like stuff like that. Yeah, and Jnana Yoga is a legitimate practice, and so is Hatha Yoga and Raja Yoga and Garba Yoga and yeah, all the paths. And there's many ways to the top of the hill. And don't take my word for shit, you know what I mean? Go get your own personal first-hand experience and go find out. It's not about, any one voice being right. We're all a team working towards a common goal of love and peace. And so yeah, we all rise together, and yeah. I'm just a cricket chirping, but that's kind of my 2 cents. And I'm sort of making this video, I guess, for someone in specific, but yeah, I'm also making it just because I'm bored. Yeah. So I don't know if it's helpful. I don't know if it's going to be of any value. I don't know if it's going to make any sense. I have no idea. Dude, I have no idea. I hope it does for it, but yeah. But if it does for anybody else, wonderful. All things being said, though, I will just say, I was talking about non-duality. Yeah. The idea that you are that which unionizes opposites or whatever the heck you can kind of like become a step removed from the part of you that recognizes the mind and the ego, anything, any conceptual bit or any experience or feeling as good or bad. You can become a step removed from the part of your brain that makes that association and kind of not be affected by the associations that the mind makes to certain feelings. And you would not believe what reality is like without the mind's associations and assignments of what it thinks reality is. Have you ever noticed that like really, really hot water and really, really cold water kind of feel the same? Like at first? Yeah. It could be like that for all of it. It is like that for all of it on some level. Inhale and exhale, no difference at all. Pain and pleasure, silence and sound. Life and death, or birth and death. No difference at all. And I've experienced this, and it's beyond all conception. I have no words for, yeah. Like, it's not just an intellectual, lived, felt, experienced this. And so if in life you ever get too caught up in dualistic conception, this is so good, this is so bad, I need this, I can't, you know what I mean, etc., just remind yourself that on some level there's a part of you which can't even tell the difference between positive and negative. And it's the wisest part of you and the most loving part of you. And it's no part. Yeah. And you could find that you at any point, at any time. It's always with you. It's always with you. And that's where like kind of that idea of like moksha or liberation comes from. Is like if you could become freed from the mind's dualistic conceptual understanding of what reality is, then you don't suffer, and you're not like subject to the mind or that which arises, or however Om might oscillate. And you can become spiritually free like that. Easier said than done, of course. But yeah, so there's that, and then there's also, don't forget to be yourself, to not judge yourself, and to, like, there's this one idea in the Upanishads that, like, when desire arises from the core of the heart, it's typically for the betterment and the good of the self as a whole. Just something to think about. And so those deep desires, those deep core desires, the selfless desires, the love-oriented desires that you have, those are typically like worth listening to. Or at least, you know, asking yourself, why does my heart yearn for this? And should I do something about it? And if you think the answer is yes, then act without hesitation, you know? Be present and live now. And yeah. Hey. Something like that. That's pretty much all I gotta say. It's a bunch of rambling. I hope it wasn't too boring. I hope it wasn't too lectury. And I hope it wasn't too on the nose. Yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. Om Tridevaya Namaha. Om Indraya Devaya Namaha. I love y'all. I love you too. Yeah, and to anybody watching, I love you, the viewer. And I hope you're warm and well fed and be blessed wherever you're at. And may your heart be filled with God's love. And yeah, praying for peace, equanimity, harmony, and love, you know, for all of us, for the whole self, and for, you know, all the humanity and the whole planet and all that. And yeah, I love y'all. I love y'all. I love y'all. It's good to be here. It's good to be alive and shit. Life is a gift. And like, yeah, I'm not actually like, there you go.